Good evening. This is Black Crow Walking and Karen Morley coming to you from Australia, and we are currently doing a study on A Course of Love by Mari Perron. I'm in Lake Macquarie, and Karen is in Phillip Island. How exciting to be able to do this long distance. We're up to chapter 26, and I'm going to read the very last sentence in verse 22 so that you can get a concept of what we're talking about today. You were birthed in unison with God's idea of you. This does not need to be understood. And that's the thing, Karen. We try and have to understand everything with our minds, and yet we don't have to understand. What we need to do is just feel into and know. And that's the exciting bit for me, because most stuff that comes from spirit or divinity or love bypasses the mind. So there's absolutely no need for us to try and understand anything, really.
It is a relief.
This is necessary because of your reliance on a God who is other than you for the provision of your answers. Acceptance of your birth is in unison with God's idea of you, is acceptance of yourself as co-creator of the pattern of the universe. Acceptance of the idea or the story that is you. Can you not see that you were birthed into a place in a pattern of God's creation, or that you not only can know but have always known of this place? So we've got to stop thinking about ourselves other than being love or being God as co-creator.
So verse 24, this is not a place of physical form, but a place of holiness, an integral place in the pattern that is oneness with God. It is a place you have never left, but that you long for, believing that you know it not. Your life here is much like a search for your story. Where will this chapter lead? What will the end be like? Was one event a mistake and another a blessing in disguise? You seek to know your story's table of contents, or at least a brief outline. Where does your life fit in the larger picture? And yet you realize that, like reading a story, when the end is reached and all is known, the story is over, except in memory and reflection, and perhaps in speculation. What might a sequel reveal?
This viewing of your life as a story is what you do. You spend each day in review or speculation. What has happened and what will happen next? You attempt to rewrite the previous chapters and to cast all the parts and plan all the events of the next. Excuse me. This is, in effect, your attempt to control what you do not believe you created and what you feel deprived of creating. As a being birthed by the thought of God, you grew simultaneously with God's thought. You knew your place in the pattern of creation from the onset. A full life is quite simply a fulfillment of that thought and that pattern. The only way to know it is to think it once again. The only way to think it once again is to be wholehearted, for a split mind and heart do not think clearly. Would you like to finish the rest of that chapter, Karen?
Sure. Being whole is being present. And being whole is being all that you are. Being whole is being present as all you are. When this occurs, you are all in all, one in being with your Father. I fulfilled my story, my pattern, the idea of me that came from the thought of God. In doing so, I restored unity, oneness with God. I ushered in the new way that you are now longing to adopt. I ushered in a time of being.
Yeah, wow. It's bringing us right back to our core essence. And I love the way it talks about patterns because I see our matrix or the way we're actually made up as geometrical structures and somewhat like a kaleidoscope pattern, and that is always in constant motion and change. And that's what a kaleidoscope does. When you look inside it, if you slightly move, the pattern changes. And so I love the idea that creation is in constant motion and change, and so am I, because I know what it is to be in a rut and it's not pleasant, and then the universe crushes you and says, get out of that rut, get back out into the world and live your life. And that's what we really need to be doing every day. So, what this is challenging us to do, Karen, is truly become uh, back into our original form without all the stories we've overlaid on our geometric patterns or on our patterns of co-creation. Um, yeah, it's like saying, hey, remember who you were when you were born? Remember how you were created as love, as divinity. Remember create co you were created um, like an expression of divinity, of love, of God. And that's who we really are. And when we cover it up with these stories that we keep trying to make different as if we didn't even create them ourselves, which we have, we've created everything in our life. And that for me is why I am so determined to take responsibility for absolutely everything I've created. And sometimes that can be a big ask, especially when you've been a victim of violence or rape or incest or any of those sorts of horrible things. We think, well, we're not responsible for that, but we were part of the creation of it. And for me, it makes me look now at what I can say no to and what and who I connect with and whether I want to connect with that person or I don't, because I have those choices. And in those choices is my creation. So if I say yes to the connection with someone who is not good for me, then I'm creating that. And probably rolling around in the story of how can I make this better? How can I how can I, in essence control it or um try and change the other person, and that just doesn't work. It's the story, it's the rolling around in it, it's trying to make it better. What were the actual words that it said? Review and or speculation. We spend each day in review or speculation. How can we make it better?
Mm.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm finding a practice that I've been doing in the last few days is as soon as things that don't serve me, like things from the past or in the future, so it's not in alignment with just being where I am,
Mm-hmm.
I will then acknowledge that they're happening, but then I will come to my heart. I will just really pay attention to my heart and coming from my heart. So giving myself that love and then allowing that love to expand out. And so for me, that's just trying to nip in the bud the stories that keep coming up, be it in the past or the creation of the future too. Yes. So I think it's our default is to go into stories and the past, the future, and what happened to who we are, our real self.
Mm. And always trying to make it better somehow or trying to make it different somehow. And that's why we replay over and over and over, because we can't accept what's happened. We can't surrender to it. We just have to try and make it different. And that keeps us rolling around in that. But I love what you said which reiterates this very last bit, which says, I restored unity, oneness with God. I ushered in the new way that you are now longing to adopt. I ushered in the time of being. No, it was a bit before that. Being whole is being all you are. Being whole is being present as all you are. When this occurs, you are all is all, one in being with your Father. Wholeheartedness. So, wholehearted from the split mind and heart, do not think clearly. All right, it's that wholeheartedness, bringing that in again. And what that means is, which is what they're trying to say here again, is that we join our mind with the mind of love, and we join our heart with the with the heart of love. And bringing those two together creates a joining that is wholehearted. And that's what wholehearted means, is bringing everything into alignment with love and joining them together. And like at first I spent months saying, I'm not taking any notice of what my mind says. It's just a septic sewage system in there. I don't like it. So as more feeling into, which is what this book led me to, feeling into and knowing with my heart. But now, and as we progress through that learning, we're to bring our minds into alignment with love and join that with the heart. And so I'm still in a quandary, Karen, because I'm not really sure about how my mind is useful because it's so trained and patterned from so many different people and cultures and ways that I've been controlled and told how to do things. And so I haven't trusted my mind because it's got patterns in there that are not my patterns. They're somebody else's, and I've bought into them. I've allowed that patterning and that programming, and which is totally dysfunctional. So I'm still in a quandary as to how I'm going to realign my mind with love when it's still so programmed.
I think it's a new mind that comes into being. For me, my understanding is that a new mind comes into being where that is no longer needed. So that's where the wholeheartedness is. It's not a split mind doesn't think clearly. So while we're still thinking, while I'm still thinking about, the past and the future and all the different implications, that's a split mind. So for my mind to come back into that heart space, and I think it's the letting go. I don't have to make it happen. I need to let it go and really trust that God's going to make the little switches and the changes and the little things that are going to happen in my mind. So long as I, hold the hand and partake of, acknowledging, okay, that's happening again and coming back. So for me, it's just a matter of coming back, and trusting that my mind is going to be switched. It's going to be changed. It'll be a new mind that won't even go down that path.
Okay, well, that's an interesting concept, and I'd be very interested to see if it works. It's brought up a couple of things for me, and it's scientifically proven now that we have three minds. We have our mind in our head, we have our mind in our heart, and we have a mind in our emotional center. But what I've discovered as a healer is that every cell in my body has vast intelligence. And when we talk about aligning everything that is intelligent within my body, every cell, every mitochondria, every parasite, everything has to align with my will. And that's why when I think of will, I think of the intelligence of the will, which is the mind of the will. And they've proven that scientifically now that we actually have three minds. And I'm wondering if it is the heart mind that we're actually aligning our love with. And when we say the word, when we say the word heart, are we inferring intelligence, the intelligence of the heart, or the mind of the heart? And are they two different things? I don't know where I'm going here now, but I'm exploring that concept of, are they two different things? And is it possible to join that rather than this thing up here that's so attached to the egoic mind? Yeah, I feel like there's more to this. And when I think about spiritually how we are able to tap into knowing and wisdom that is not ours, that actually bypasses the mind, and it just comes out the mouth, doesn't even touch the mind. And that's how the gifts of the spirit work. That's how the gifts of love work. So I'm wondering if that's how we join our minds with the mind of love, by simply not thinking and just allowing ourselves to bring through the wisdom and the knowing that we are capable of as we connect with love.
I totally agree with what you're saying there about the letting go and allowing. I think it's all this struggle of wanting to know more, because that's not trusting. It's not trusting. That's not trusting in the divine intervention that I believe I just need to be willing, to be open and willing and coming from that heart space. And for me, that's such a relief, because I've been on the search for knowledge all my life, constantly learning, and I want to get off that merry-go-round of doing that, and just come back to the center of who I am.
Yeah, when we're on that merry-go-round of wanting to learn, wanting to know more, we're always looking outside ourselves for the teacher, and the greatest teacher is inside us. So it's coming back to being still and silent and tapping into that knowing. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I love that, being still. And when the mind gets busy, that's when I remember, that's what I try and remind myself of, is to be still. Yeah. Just be still. Just be still. Don't have to know. Don't have to have the answers. Just be still and be open.
So I'll just quickly read that last verse again. I fulfilled my story. What if we could say that, Karen? I fulfilled my story of how I was created and the pattern. I fulfilled my pattern that I was created in the idea of love that came from the thought of God. In doing so, I restored unity, oneness with God. I ushered in the new way that you are now longing to adopt. I ushered in a time of being. So, how more relaxing it would be if we could just be in a time of being where we really realize that we've fulfilled our story. We are the pattern of love. We are that which God created. And how relaxing would that be?
Oh, totally.
Wouldn't
and
have
to be
run
in
around.
flow with it. Be in flow with it.
Yeah. We
So
wouldn't have to run around anymore saying, who am I? Why am I here? Yeah.
I am. Yeah.
All right, beloved, we're going to leave it there. Are you complete with that, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing the experience of bringing A Course of Love to the world. And until we meet again, just know that you are loved and I love you. Bye for now.